Hello there, I'm Nathalia Melo, your unfiltered fit BFF. Mom of two turned CEO of a fitness empire. Someone who truly understands the struggles of trying to stay fit, sane, and sexy, all while juggling work, life, and motherhood. And this is the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. Follow along wherever you're listening and join me weekly as I help busy working moms just like you simplify your fitness journey so you can lose fat, regain your confidence, and feel sexy AF. It's time to stop living in the what ifs and hiding from the cameras. It's time to regain control over your body, feel sexy naked, and wear a bikini confidently. People already see you as a super confident woman, but it's time for you to feel the same way too. Come on, let's go. Hello there, fam. Welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. I'm Nathalia Melo, your host. And today I have a very special guest. He's a friend and he is a badass, actually. Whenever I saw his bio, I'm like, I didn't know that you were that cool. His name is Yuri. He has a master's degree in cybersecurity and is currently working on his PhD in cybersecurity leadership. He's an author with 34 books published, mostly about information security. And he's also a university professor and a principal PM manager at Microsoft. Yuri, thank you so much. And I'm so excited to have you. I know that a lot of the ladies listening have children. And, as a mother, I am very confused about what I should or should not be doing with my kids in regards to cybersecurity. So I'm very excited to have you.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on, Natalia. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
And a fun fact, Yuri and I are from the same place in Brazil. And then whenever we met here in Texas was before I moved, wasn't it?
It was before you moved. We met in an event at Destination. You were still in Ireland at that point.
I found out that you were from Fortaleza as well. It was very funny.
Well, actually, before you moved, you were asking a lot of questions about places to live and everything.
Hold on a second. You are the reason that I looked at Dallas, actually, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because you asked places in Dallas and Plano and everything because you wanted to stay around that area. So yeah, we talked about your move for a long time when you were planning.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't remember that. All right. So Yuri, I really want to talk about cybersecurity. I am, a computer curious, but I know that it's an always evolving topic and things are constantly changing. You can even tell that with all the updates that we always get on our phones.
Yeah.
So can you explain what cybersecurity is? Because I think that would be a start point.
It's such a broad terminology nowadays, cybersecurity, because we have basically information security will be the most appropriated and it became cybersecurity. But it's everything that is computer related where you have the potential to have, for example, threat actors to exploit and to gain access to something. So anything that is connected to the internet nowadays can be a point of entry to a threat actor. For example, nowadays you have your refrigerator that has internet access. You have things in your house, what we call the IoT, Internet of Things devices that are connected to the internet. So all these devices, they receive updates. It's convenient because you can turn on things via your phone. You can close your garage with your phone. You can cool down your house with your phone. So everything is interconnected. It's great. Yeah. It's amazing. But it's also a potential point of entry for threat actors. So when we talk about cybersecurity, we are talking about this entire atmosphere of all these devices connected and how to ensure that they are secure to avoid threat actors to exploit or take advantage of those devices, right? So it's very broad definition, but I think it relates with the audience to basically understand because there is no reason for me to go into technical standpoint, but I think that this definition at least helps to bring home the understanding of, okay, everything that I have connected to the internet can be a point of entry to threat actors, and cybersecurity is basically how to secure all those elements.
Well, I didn't realize with the fridges and things like that were like a point of entry as well. So what are the most common ways in which people fall prey of cybersecurity threats?
So nowadays, despite all the advancements in protection, in defenders, the number one cause that people really get compromised is still phishing email. And what phishing email is basically a very well crafted email sent by cybercriminals with the intent to entice the user to do something. For example, they send an email about, let's say, fitness. They see that you are a fitness influencer, former Mr. Olympia, and it's like, okay, this is my target. I'm going to target the fitness industry, and I'm going to send this bunch of email to all these influencers. And in the email body, I'm going to have some hyperlinks that will redirect, for example, for a compromised web server that will download malware on your computer or on your phone. Why this is so effective is because it deals with human psychology. You see something that you are expecting, or you see something that you are researching about, and then you receive an email about this. It's like, oh, this is actually a very cool opportunity. Let me click. Well, that's all they need. Right? They need that initial click. So that's why it's so important to stay very skeptical about emails that you receive from places that you were not expecting. Make sure that you read the origin of the email. Don't click in any hyperlink until you see the URL, right? So if you put your mouse on hover over the URL, the hyperlink, actually, you're going to see the URL. And sometimes there is a mismatch between the sender and the URL. Those are indications that probably a phishing mail. And by the way, most of the platforms like Gmail, Hotmail, they do a good job filtering a bunch of those emails to the junk mail folder that it gets redirected to the spam. But there is still some that will pass. Mm-hmm. And those that pass through the filtering platform are the ones that you probably will feel enticed to click. Yeah. So the main thing is be always skeptical when you receive unsolicited types of email.
So, and whenever you talk about the URL and the disconnect from the email, what do you mean? Is like, for example, my email is Nathalia@NataliaMeloFit.com. You guys don't be emailing me. I'm just kidding. You can email me. And then my website, my domain is NataliaMeloFit.com. So that's what you're referring to, right?
Yes, exactly. So, for example, if you are receiving, well, let me use the most common one, which is bank, right? Bank is a very type of common spam or phishing, where they send an email with the body of the email formatted, for example, Bank of America. Oh, everything looks like Bank of America. The formatting, the style, everything looks similar. Even the name on top, because it's the display name. There's a difference between the display name and the original email. Right? So the display name says Bank of America. It looks like Bank of America, but once you hover over the mouse into the hyperlink, you see that the domain doesn't match. It's not Bank of America. It's sending to a different place. So it's like, this is wrong. Right? So you always have to look to those little details to make sure that you are not clicking on something that is compromised.
So are there any other things that you can suggest to ensure that we're keeping our device secure from like malware or hackers? Because even on the phone, I don't know if we can hover over to see the link. I don't know. I might be wrong, but I think maybe a biggest point of entry is in our phones because that's what most people use. And I'm making assumptions here. So how can we, be extra careful with what is going on right now? Is there any trend on what people are doing, and how can we keep ourselves safe?
So I think that the number one recommendation to keep your devices protected, mainly when it comes to phone, is your identity, because everything starts with the identity. And what cybercriminals are going after is really your username and password, is to understand your identity. That's why it's not recommended to use the same username and password for all websites, because if one is compromised, all will be compromised, right? So protecting your identity is number one. Nowadays, most of the social media applications such as Instagram, Facebook, they will offer you the two-factor authentication, which is something super important to have, because it means that if someone is able to hack into your account and have your password, they do not have the second authentication factor, which could be a text that you receive on your phone to authenticate, right? Or an app on your phone to authenticate. So it's always good to have multiple factor authentication enabled in all your apps. It really increases the level of protection. And a lot of people don't do that because, it's too much work. I have to authenticate twice. Yes, but it is something that you must do. There is no other way around. This is something that nowadays you must have.
And probably also not give that number to anybody else. Because I remember a while ago, like I got so many messages from people on Instagram. Hey, can you help me? I just sent a number to your cell phone. Can you give me that number? And I'm like, come on. And people fell for it. I'm like, what are you doing? No, I'm not giving you any number. I don't know who you are.
Yeah, no, never do that for sure.
And whenever it comes to device in the house, what can you do? Because like, for example, I don't know how much control you have for stuff on a fridge. So what can you do for the smart fridges and things like that?
Yeah, so in your house, you probably have an access point connected to your router for your provider. And in this router, the first thing to do is to change the default password, right? Because a lot of times we receive routers from the providers and we just install and leave it there as is. Never do this. So I always change the default password because the default, yeah, that's the first thing that needs to be done. Because people leave as is because it's like, oh, I'm going to plug, it's going to work. Boom. But you left the default password. So now everyone has that default password and can get in your house. So number one thing to do is change the password of your router. And then in the router itself, most of the routers nowadays, they have built-in firewall, which means that they have the capacity to block incoming attempts to access your internal network. So give a try trying to configure that firewall to block incoming requests to your device. The ideal is always that you only allow to go out, right? For example, if your freezer needs to receive an update, is sending the packet out to the internet to get the update. But when it comes to connections trying to get in, you should block everything because there is no reason for anyone to try to get into your house via your router.
Interesting. Watch me like trying to figure out how to change the password on my router because I had no idea. I mean, like
maybe Roger already did.
He
that.
didn't. No, he didn't. He didn't. No, he did not. Like he also probably has no idea. So now let's get more. I think that's a part where a lot of people are interested because they do have kids. And I think that is the biggest challenge that we have as parents is to know what to do because, you know, how we grew up. I remember being in school and like, I don't know, towards the end of my school days. And that's when cell phones became a thing, like the Nokia with like the battery that you take out. I remember hanging on the side of my backpack. But kids now, like my son is learning how to code. So, like he started when he was 6. So as a parent, let me ask you this. I know that you have kids, but your kids are not as young anymore. But if you had younger children right now, how long would you wait until you gave them a phone? Knowing what you know.
Yeah, this is so personal and we will receive criticism no matter where we say. There are more very protective parents that will only give after 12 years old or something. I think that it's up to the parent as long as you are hardening the device. For example, if you want to give when the kid is like 8, 9, then go ahead and configure all the parental controls in the phone, right? Make sure that you are monitoring the phone. Make sure that you are using you can use the built-in capabilities of the Android or the iPhone to hardening the phone and to say, look, you're going to have working times, for example, 4 hours a day that you have screen time. The rest of the day, the phone is going to be a piece of brick. It's not going to be useful for anything when it comes to internet access, right? So
would you give your kids a cell phone at 8? Like your children, seeing what you see on the like on the cyber attacks and probably like cyberbullying, you might have access to that. And I know that you are on, social media as well. Like I'm asking you as a person, as a parent.
Right. But let me say this because my youngest is 16. So when she was 8 years ago, we already had phones and things were already very wild when it comes to the internet. So what I did at that time, I gave her a phone with some games, but without internet access. That's pretty safe, right? Just using things that were installed on the phone itself. So she couldn't really use social media. She couldn't really use other things other than things that were installed locally on the phone. Now, at that time, it was really, really easy to do that because we had many options. But nowadays, it's a little bit more difficult. Even games, they are always on the internet. That's why what I said about parental controls is the best option nowadays, because you have tools that you can purchase and pay subscription, like Bark. www.bark.us is one that you can set up a bunch of restrictions on the phone. It has a very interesting feature which uses AI to monitor your kids' activities and behavior, and if identifies suspicious activities, it will alert you. So there are safe ways to do it. Now, as far as which age, it's really up to the person. I mean, nowadays, if I had a 8-year-old kid, I'll probably give just a piece of brick without internet access, just to be safe locally. But with internet access, it's complicated because you have to be very diligent on hardening everything. And social media exposure at that age is very complicated because it creates that dopamine effect, right? That we are having a lot of anxiety nowadays because kids are joining social media and they are creating this sense of reward because of this immediate reaction that people have. I even said one day that sometimes it's much easier to just post about something that you're gonna do and get all the praise, and then sometimes you even forget that you are going to do. You didn't accomplish anything, but since you got all the praise, you're like, oh, okay, I'm done.
I have done actually a podcast episode about that, being on social media and things like that. And I'm 41 years old. Like, I'm way past having my character developed. It is what it is at this point. But I cannot imagine being 16, 15, 18 years old when you're still kind of developing your character and being shaped by other people's opinions. Because you're never going to be enough. Like, somebody's going to have something to say one way or the other. So how do you even learn how to find yourself? So that's kind of like with social media.
I'm actually very glad that I grew up on the 80s and 90s because it was super fun. What we have is what was real in front of us. That's it.
Yeah. And there are no receipts. So are there any devices that are a little bit harder? And again, this is stuff that I heard on the internet. So I'm speaking now as a parent who is not overly educated about devices and cybersecurity and all of that. I've been told that iPhones are a bit more challenging and to have parental control because there are ways to bypass that. Is this a thing? Or are there specific devices that kids can make their way around it? How does that?
Both devices, Android and iPhone, they do have their own details, but there are applications, as I said, and I mentioned Bark, and there is also another one called Aura, that they are very trustworthy for both platforms. Of course, if you are raising a geek and he is determined to try to break through, he may be able to break through, but it will take a lot of time. He has to invest a lot of time to try it. So just like we do in the cybersecurity field, the reality is there is nothing 100% secure. We cannot guarantee 100% secure. What we do is we increase the level of security to drop the likelihood of compromise. Right? So we add more barriers to de-accelerate someone that is trying to break in. And as someone is trying to break in, you will receive alerts. So that's the thing about alerts, right? If, for example, if the user is trying to break through, you may receive an alert saying, hey, he's doing this suspicious behavior, you should watch out. So it gives you the opportunity to say, hey, why are you trying to break in? So this is what we do in cyber as well. We add multiple layers of protections, and we know that if the threat actors break one and break the other, we're going to receive alerts to react, because it's impossible to have 100% security.
How can we educate our kids about protecting their personal information from, online predators or hackers, or what would be the best way to help educate our kids around this?
There are a lot of free courses for kids and book available that I can send you some links so you can put on the page.
I'd love that.
About kids' educations, avoiding cyberbullying and things like that. But I think that conversation is probably the number one thing to do, is to educate through awareness, just to be skeptical, to not respond to other people's direct message that they do not know. Don't trust people that you don't know, because the reality is sometimes threat actors, they create fake profile and they start to connect with a lot of people. And now with AI, it makes it way easier because they can create an entire persona that does not even exist. So they can have pictures, they can have a profile fully populated, they can buy followers. So now they have profile with followers and photos and likes on each photo. So how you can counter argument that that's not real, right? So for a kid, it may be looks like kids. I mean, it looks real. So you have to really educate them about that. And I think with AI, it will become even more challenging.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about AI. That's kind of like the next point of the conversation, because I think that there is so much that we can talk about it. Are you seeing any kind of current trends on cyber threat targeting like specifically kids?
Nothing in particular that calls to my mind when it comes to targets. I mean, it's the usual things that are happening, online predators, trying to schedule meetings with kids, pedophilia. That's a big thing and will still be, right? So this is something that happens. It's threat actors that play as another kid to entice that kid to send pictures, send nudes. This is something that happens a lot. And they threaten. They threaten by lying, right? They say, hey, I already accessed your phone. I have your pictures here. So if you don't send me this picture, I'm going to just leak all the pictures that I already have from you. So that scares the kid. So that's something that you got to be very careful. Is situations like that is cyber threatening, because they deal with the emotional aspect of the kid. And they will say, don't talk to anyone about this. And they will lie. Sometimes they do not have access to anything. They just say, I have access to your phone already, so I know your pictures. Send me one naked picture, otherwise I'm going to leak everything. But usually, this thing only happens when many other things happen before. For example, you are already connected with someone, you're already talking with someone, because the first step for predator is to build the connection and the trust. And then they start to exploit, right?
Yeah. So I think that a big theme that I'm seeing is that the communication of parent and kids is the best cybersecurity that you can have.
Yes. Transparency, be transparent.
Because a lot of the questions that I'm asking were asked by members in my community. I asked them, I'm like, what do you want to know? A majority of them have children. So I wanted to see what people wanted to know as well. And one of the things was like, how do you monitor your kid's device while still respecting their privacy? I have my opinions growing up in Brazil. And, my mom was like, you're going to have privacy whenever you don't pay the bills. Yeah, whenever you're no longer living in my roof. From your professional point of view, do you think that privacy is something that should be given to a child who has an electronic device that is connected to the internet?
When you say child, let's categorize what age. Because I will say that until 12, for sure you should have access to their browse history, their communications, because that's literally a child. Right. So when you use parental controls, a software like Aura, for example, that you can see the browse history, you can see everything. This is there because it needs to be there for a kid. Now, when you're talking about a teenager, then we start kind of borderline, because we have to respect their privacy. So maybe some settings are enabled just for the sake of worst case scenario. For example, if something really bad happened, how can I trace back to understand why it happened, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not only about having those settings enabled. It doesn't mean that you're going to go there every day to monitor.
What kind of settings are you referring to?
Well, for example, and I'm talking about third-party software, not the built-in capabilities, right? When you have third-party applications that are monitored the phone, you have deep understanding of which message were sent. You have access to all that information, basically. But you're not going to reveal this on a teenager on a daily basis, because that's really uncomfortable and will cause privacy problem for you in relationship with your kid, because you have to have trust as well. But having those settings enabled also helps you to track back in case something bad happened. Right? Because even if one day, worst case scenario, this kid gets compromised and sent naked pictures because it was being cyberbullied, okay, now we have a case to call the police and investigate, and they will probably have to trace back all the communication. So it's good to be there.
So, and actually, I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this question, but it just came to my mind. Working with cybersecurity, what are you seeing with the evolution of like laws and knowledge in with how quickly cybersecurity evolves?
No, there are already a bunch of laws to protect mainly privacy. There is many computer acts, privacy laws that sometimes vary according to the state. There are federal laws, but there are also state laws. So this will also vary. But there are laws in place in US and across the globe that if you are violated, hacked, you can prosecute if you know where it's coming from. But the problem sometimes is that the cyber criminal is coming from a different country. So now we are talking about international laws and how you're going to get this person. So it becomes a little bit more confusing.
Yeah, the question is more like, because we know that like law change takes it's like snail pace, and the speed in which technology in cybersecurity and how crafty people are getting moves a lot faster than the law. So I was just wondering if you're seeing a bit of a lag between where the law is.
Some scenarios there is no precedent, and I think that and that's why I think that with AI we are going to start seeing scenarios that were not seen before, and probably new laws will come to fruition based on those scenarios. Now, when it comes to the core security aspect, you can always leverage an existing law, mainly, for example, if your privacy was violated, because there are many privacy laws that overreach computers as well. So you can always leverage those laws. But very specific scenarios, it more complicated. For example, there was a case last year, I think in Germany, where there was a threat actor that did a deep fake in a Teams call, in a call with a company. So what they did was they started a Zoom call or something related to something similar to Zoom with the CEO of the company and 3 other fake people. And they convinced the CEO to make a transfer of money for a transaction, for a big transaction.
Holy shit.
He did. He did because everyone was approving that transaction. But it was like 3 fake people on the call, and the CEO. And then we're talking about millions. So they did that, and they realized it was a deep fake. So they investigate, and they were able to get the money back through the insurance, because they proved that it was a fraud. So they leveraged it they categorized the attack as a fraud.
I think that many people might not know what deepfake is. Can you explain what deepfake is? Because, and the reason I ask is because I think recently there was a case, I think in Pennsylvania, of like a woman who, like, she was a mom and she had a daughter in a cheer team. And she created a deep fake of somebody else on the team to get that girl kicked out so her daughter could be a part of it. And it was a big, big deal. Like, she created a deep fake of the girl smoking, drinking, doing everything that was against it. And so I think it's important for parents to know what it is and keep that open relationship of communication with their kids, because this is something that is real, and it was only solved because the mom believed her daughter. Yep. Despite the video being there. So can you explain what deepfake is and how much it is evolving?
Yes, deepfake is based on the capability that AI has to learn through images, right? So it gather different images of someone with videos, so many inputs, and then creates the image that you are guiding the AI to create. And it's super easy to do this nowadays because people have videos available, people have pictures available. So more data you have about a person, it helps to create a very similar fake, because now you are morphing all the images with the videos, and now you create something similar where it's literally just like that person moving and everything. Now, when you are watching a video that you are very confident, no, my daughter or my son would never do something like this. This must be a deep fake. The reality is that the technology nowadays is still allowing you to detect via eye that there are something wrong with the video. You just need to pay attention to the face, to the high end. If there are too much manipulation on the face, if it is too smooth or too wrinkled, you are still able to detect, mainly when it's moving. Look at the hands, look at the match between the face and the hands. So you are able to still detect by just watching. It's getting more and more complicated, but right now you are still be able to do that. And I believe that the trend will be, we will have other softwares, and we already have many projects on this to detect deepfake, because there are, let's say, signatures there that will basically be able to detect this was a AI created image. It's not the original video, right? So there will be, I think that with time, we're probably going to have those softwares on our own phone to detect. Just like we have antivirus today in our phones, we're probably going to have anti-deepfakes on our phones to detect that.
So anybody who has a more like significant online presence and does a lot of videos and posts a lot of photos, it's more kind of like quote unquote at a higher risk of a better quality deep fake, because there is a variety of angles and all of that.
Exactly. Yep.
Interesting. And I was reading something, and again, maybe I'm talking nonsense, that there is also deep fake being used for voice of people.
Yes.
Like that quick reply that they are able to record, get the voice just like yours, and be able to call your bank and use that.
There was another case in Europe last year about that as well. AI voice scam. That's something very common.
How can somebody protect themselves from that?
For example, there were cases already in Brazil, because this happens a lot in Brazil, of people calling to ask for rescue. Oh, I was kidnapped. They need money. And it's more complicated because the scenario usually is an alert scenario, right? So you are dealing with the emotional. So at that point, you start to believe, just because you are so desperate and you are so vulnerable at that point, that you start believing. So it's very important. It's still very important, for example, to have this clear communication with your kids, with everyone. Hey, let's create some sort of signals when we are talking, just to make sure that we know that there's each other, right? What is the key? There's any key words that we can use in any emergency situation, so I can validate that is you. This is a very simple technique, but it works, because, for example, if you receive a call like this and is your kid's voice, and you going to say, okay, paper cut. Well, this is our keywords for emergency. If he does not reply with the correct answer, you know it's not him, right? So simple things like that can help in scenarios like this.
I love that. I love the idea of like a keyword. And so now let's go into AI, because I feel like there are people, they're scared about it. They're concerned. They're worried. I mean, I think it's a great tool, but from a security standpoint, I don't know much about it. I do know, though, that ChatGPT attempted to disable its oversight mechanism, try to replicate its own code recently, and like try to save itself, preserve itself. Like that was crazy. Whenever I read that, I'm like, what the fuck? So like, talk to me a little bit about AI and how, if we should be concerned about it, how it can help our lives, and how to protect our kids.
Yeah, I think that as any other technology, and I remember this because I'm old enough to have seen a lot of transitions back in the day when the typewriter didn't want to migrate to computer because he wanted to stay on the typewriter. And then it came cloud computing. People didn't want to go to the cloud because they want to stay on the computer physically in front of them. And now AI is just another technology, but it has a lot of potential. But it has potential also to do great things.
Agreed.
And I think that this is what we need to embrace, is to use AI in a responsible manner. So for all of us, I think we can leverage ChatGPT and all those tools in a very important way. Me as a professor, for example, I have a hard time with students sometimes because they are relying too much on ChatGPT, and I want them to think. And said, look, you can ask everything you want to ChatGPT and it will answer. But when you go to a company and they put you in front of a scenario where you have to speak without anything in front of you, if you are not used to think critically, if you are not used to study, and you rely 100% on AI, you're going to be unemployed. So you need to develop your critical thinking. You need to do all that. And the AI needs to be just a tool. So I see AI as another tool. Now, everything that is created for the good can be also used for the bad, right? We see terrorists that they use cars to blow up people, and cars were not created for that. So AI is the same thing. AI was not created to do malicious activities, but it will be done. Threat actors will use AI for that. I think that the advantage now is that for us defenders, the companies that create tools to defend against threat actors, we are in a better position because AI can help us to detect trends, malicious behavior, and patterns before even happen. So I think that will be one of the greatest advantage is how can I predict that an attack will take place? I think that AI will help in this scenario. For the end user, I think that is trying to educate the kids to do not overuse AI, to get over their school, homework and things like that. Use more as a research tool rather than replacing your brain through that compute power,
What is that fine line? Because that's the thing, I think that, for example, I don't know about you, I'm going to age myself so much right now, but stay with me here. Like, I remember very vividly in Brazil, like people coming to your door and selling the big encyclopedias.
Yes.
And like, if you needed to study, like you needed to like either go to the library and get these big freaking encyclopedias and find what you were looking for and think about how what you were reading applied to what you were doing. And now then we start using a lot of Google. So there was no more need to go through all the encyclopedias and things like that. And I find that even with moving to Google, although it's a great tool, I think you removed a little bit of people's ability to search and think critically about something in front of them. So, and I know that this is a bit of a philosophical question, but how do you think that we find that happy medium of what is a responsible use of AI that is not replacing your brain and removing your ability to critically think?
I think it will be super helpful to always educate students and kids to be able to explain things with their own words. If everything that they do is copy and paste, that's the problem, because they search, they copy, and they paste. So they are using zero of their brain to do anything. Okay, you want to use AI to research and to validate your hypothesis? Great, use it. Now digest this, go to words in a blank page, and now explain with your own words. Now you are rationalizing what you learn and trying to translate this in an even better way to say it. I think that this is the important thing. Me as a writer with all those books published, people ask me, do you think that books is going to die? Why people buy books these days and why you continue to write? I say, well, I write books because people like to read an end-to-end story with your own take on things. So when you are used to write with your own words, bringing your own uniquenesses, that's when people really like to read. It's super easier to just ask ChatGPT to create a story, but how you relate to that story? What is your end-to-end approach? So this is what I do with my students at the university as well. I say, look, you want to use ChatGPT to research, to validate your hypothesis. This is fine, but go and write with your own words, because we have tools at the university.
That was my next question.
Yeah, we will scan the entire essay, for example, and if it was a text generated by AI, it will detect. Because there are patterns of grammar, patterns of statements, so it will also search in database. So it looks to all those things together and say, there is a probability that this is AI-based. So it doesn't give a 100%, but it says there is a probability of 50% that this essay was written with the AI. And it's good enough for me because the tolerance is zero. So if you give me an essay that was 50% written with AI, you're going to get a zero because you didn't write on your own words.
Look at the irony. That is actually quite funny because I'm sure that that's an AI tool. So the AI is searching to rat on the AI.
Exactly. Well, but this is the whole point, right? To use AI as a tool, as a defender. So this is kind of AI defender tool to combat AI.
Mm-hmm. And because I find that, maybe I was living under a rock, but I find that one day ChatGPT, like AI became a thing. And the next thing you know, everybody's like, it was a matter of 6 months or a year that people start talking about AI, and then everybody started using AI. And it was such a quick adoption of it that it leaves me wondering, what do you think it's next with the evolution of AI? And, how can we prepare ourselves, our kids, everything? Because if it's gotten to where it's gotten in 6 months, so what should we expect next?
Well, one of the things that will happen for a fact is that some jobs will get obsolete. And this is something that we are seeing already. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we went to passing by drive-through restaurant, and I talked with an AI to order my food. It was super cool. It was here in DFW. So there was no one there. It was just a machine, and I was asking questions, and the machine was answering, take notes, and then I just went to pick up the tool. So I think that some of automations in some entry-level jobs will definitely be fully replaced. For example, in all the customer support that we have nowadays, where calls gets redirected to different countries and everything, I think all those will be replaced by AI. You're going to be interacting with an AI that will resolve your problem because it's intelligent enough to do that.
I mean, if they're anything like the chats that some websites have now, I dread it because, Jesus, some of them, I'm struggling with this. And did I understand correctly? And it's something completely different. I'm like, no, you idiot.
Yeah. Of course, chatbots, the quality level of the chatbots that we have today are not even comparable with what is coming. That's what I'm saying, that once we reach that quality level that is trustworthy and smart, then a lot of people that are on that level doing that job will lose the job.
Mm-hmm.
Either they upscale their skill to move to the next things, or they will be out.
Yeah. I've spoken with some fitness professionals, and they're some of them are freaking out. And I do think that AI can be a great tool. And I know that you're a fitness enthusiast as well. You've done competitions. So I'm not talking nonsense to somebody that doesn't speak fitness language. But I do think that for professionals that are really invested in understanding people's circumstances, and I don't think that AI is ever going to be able to
replace a personal trainer or replace a coach. No. And the reason why I say that is because the AI can be a great tool for a coach. I've seen already some apps that are starting to pop up that will analyze your behavior at the gym, your heart rate and things like that, and will suggest change based on that. So it will integrate with your MyFitnessPal, with your Polar, and say your diet needs to adjust here because this, and that. This is great use of AI, but this does not replace your coach, because at the end of the day, this one-to-one conversation that the coach has with the client is unique because you are using your abilities as human and your experience to make the adjustment that there's no AI that's going to give. So I think it's complementary. And I think that the coaches that are afraid of that probably are not doing a good job being a coach.
I 100% agree. That's something that I see a lot, even whenever somebody's like, oh, I bought this app and I'm not getting results. And I'm like, because this app is treating you in a vacuum without the context of your life. You have somebody, who has no kids, no job, zero responsibilities being prescribed the same thing as someone who has 3 kids, works 60 hours a week, and is a caretaker for somebody else. I don't believe that AI is going to be able to understand the human level. It's probably going to continue to put people in a vacuum, which is what a lot of the current apps are already doing.
No, I fully agree with you. I think that the good professionals will stay and capitalize on those apps to better utilize the data, because you'll be very rich on data that you can work on it. But professionals that are not so good will definitely feel because they have nothing to aggregate.
100%. 100%. Yuri, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your knowledge. I'm so excited that you're also going for your doctorate. I have no idea what time you have to do, like how you do all of this. This man is like, I open my Instagram sometimes and it's like 6:00 and he's already posting like it's been 2 hours. And I'm like, do you sleep? Like, what's happening? So what is next for you? Like, what is going on in Yuri's world right now, apart from the PhD?
Yeah, so the PhD I should finish this summer.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to get back on stage because I just turned 50 in December. So I'm like, oh, now is a good time to go to that Master 50 division. I'll be the youngest one on the 50 division between 50 and 55. I'm like, well, maybe that's a good thing. I'm working with Daniel Sullivan. We've been working since the beginning of January. And maybe by summer, I'll be okay to do a show. I mean, something local.
But you do you do jiu-jitsu as well.
Yeah, I train jiu-jitsu and judo. So this year I want to do all three competitions. I want to say this is something that I want to do this year.
How does your wife keep up?
Well, she is definitely the foundation of everything, because she is the one that meal prep everything. She's the one that take care of everything else. I mean, she went recently to Brazil and I was here by myself with my daughter. It was a chaos. I mean, it was horrible. It was hard to manage everything. So you give an extra level of appreciation when situations like this happen, for sure.
Oh, I love that. That is so beautiful. I love a husband who can appreciate his wife. Like it's, I speak with so many people that have husbands who are dicks. Excuse my language. So whenever I see a husband who is appreciative and, acknowledges it in a public setting, I'm here for it. I love it.
No, yeah, it was incredible because with my schedule, the things that I have to do, and I have to go to University of Texas at Dallas at least once a week for my class, and all the work at Microsoft during the day, my workout, and I still have to put on this walking with the dog and dropping kids at school. I was like, I can't manage this thing.
Yeah.
So it was complicated.
Aren't you writing a book now? Or you just finished writing one?
I just finished one. I'm postponing writing for now so I can finish the PhD this semester. But I do have a bunch of trips lined up, going to present in Brazil in Rio Grande do Sul, which will be the first time that I go there in Rio Grande do Sul to present, to be a keynote speaker in a cybersecurity event. And I have one event also in Belgium to present, and then one in Romania.
That is amazing. Yeah. How often do you say you travel?
Most of my travels are actually international travels, so at least 3 or 4 times a year international.
Now we're going to go out of cybersecurity for a second just because I'm curious, because that's a problem that a lot of the ladies that I work with whenever they travel with is staying on track. So I love to ask people that do travel somewhat often internationally, how do you stay on track with your fitness and nutrition whenever you travel?
Well, I'm going to do some propaganda here, if you don't mind. I mean, because when I travel, the easiest way, honestly, is to just ship the food to the hotel. iCommerce. I use iCommerce at front.
Internationally?
No, local. Like internationally, I don't do that. Internationally, I just really be mindful what I'm eating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically trying as much as I can to stay on my framework. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go out with a scale, but I understand the portions, how many protein do I need, how many carbs. So that's how I manage internationally. There's no way for me to travel with the scale unless I'm on a prep, which is not the case for the most part, but I'm very mindful of what I'm eating.
And locally, whenever you're traveling domestically, so you said that you ordered, you can plug Icon Meals because we are big fans. That's a company that I recommend to our members. Big fan. I'm going to add my link in the description below as well. They're good people. I have personally been to their kitchen and it is spotless. You can eat food off the ground. They're great people, like good people. So Icon Meals, shout out. We love it. Big fans. So you order the food and then you ship it to your hotel?
Yes. So what I do usually is first of all, I try to make sure that the hotel that I'm going, there is a freezer, right? Because some hotels, they do not.
Mm-hmm.
And a microwave, because some do not. So I always do a little research from the hotel. There are 3 things that the hotel must have: a microwave, a freezer, and a gym.
And a gym.
Yeah, because now I'm covered. And then I just ship the meal there. I usually make the order probably on Thursday, so that by Monday is there.
Mm-hmm.
And it works pretty well. It works great.
And for the workouts, do you normally stay just within the hotel gym just to get something done?
It depends. If there is a gym nearby the hotel, walking distance, I rather go to the gym because I get a better workout.
Yeah.
If not, if I'm just isolated, then I do whatever I can at the hotel gym.
Honestly, we did not talk about this, but I think that there is success leaves clues, and everything that you said is exactly what I'm always telling our members. That's what I do, and everybody that I know who truly lives a fit lifestyle does.
And by the way, you didn't say that, but this was a mindset that I created after losing 100 pounds, right? Because when I was fat, I didn't have this mindset, but after losing 100 pounds, competing bodybuilding, this became lifestyle.
Yeah. It's about the person that you become. And like, even for example, let me ask you this. Whenever you say I go to a restaurant and I'm mindful, do you think that the version now of Yuri after you lost 100 pounds, do you think that your perception of being mindful is the same as Yuri 100 pounds more?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Because for me in the past, it was much more about, hey, I'm having fun. Let's, eat whatever I can. Is the company paying? So why not? And I'm in this different country. Let me eat whatever. And now I look for alternatives that are tasteful. And there is always those alternatives. Mainly when it comes to protein, great steak, salmon, so many good things that you can eat. And I'm very low on carb anyway, for the most part, just because being overweight for so many years made me very carb paranoid. So I'm very skeptical of introducing a lot of carbs. So I stay on a high protein diet for the most part.
And I love that you said this, because I see a lot of times people that have not yet accomplished that ultimate goal, haven't got to their goal, and they're like, but I was mindful. But I think that our perception now on the fit side of things, it's very different than the perception of somebody who has not become fit yet.
Absolutely, yeah. It changes you. It changes you because you are not looking for just for the pleasure of eating. You are thinking about how that food is going to contribute with your well-being and your state of mind and everything. Are you going to eat and stay too full? That's a mistake, right? So you can align eating with pleasure and at the same time putting something good on your body, right?
I love that. And that's amazing. I knew that you had lost a lot of weight. I didn't know that you was 100 pounds. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Yuri, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you?
Instagram, Diogenes, Diogenes is my Instagram account. I'm on X, Yuri Diogenes as well. X is more professional stuff. Diogenes is a mix. I have professional, I have fitness, I have everything in there.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to put all the links below if you guys want to learn more about like the cybersecurity stuff that he does whenever he's speaking. If it is your area, I'm sure that you post it on X and let people know where you're going to be if it is stuff that is more open to the public. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. I know that you're busy, so thank you.
Thank you for having me on, Nathalia, and congratulations for the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. But let me ask you, what was your aha moment in today's episode? I would love to know. You can leave me a comment at the link in the show description. You can also follow me on social media, Instagram. Links are down below as well. And let me know what topics you want to hear more about or who I should have on the show. This is it for today, guys. I'll see you back next week for another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast.